In 476 AD, a boy emperor was deposed in Italy, Romulus Augustulus. With his removal, the Western Roman Empire came to an end. The city of Rome had fallen. The legions were gone. Barbarian kings ruled the former imperial provinces. History textbooks often mark this moment as the end of Rome. But Rome did not die in 476 AD. It endured. Far to the east, in a city of marble and sea walls, crowned by domes and guarded by the Bosporus, the Roman Empire continued, unbroken. Its emperors did not call themselves Byzantine. They called themselves Roman. For nearly 1,000 more years, Rome would survive in the east. It would transform. It would contract. It would endure sieges, invasions, religious conflict, and betrayal. And in the end, it would fall, not as a relic, but as the last living remnant of antiquity. This is the story of the Byzantine Empire, Rome that refused to die. The survival of Byzantium was not an accident. It was the result of reform. In the late 3rd century, Emperor Diocletian recognized a hard truth. The Roman Empire had grown too vast to govern from a single center. He divided administrative authority between East and West. This was not division as surrender. It was division as strategy. The eastern provinces were wealthier, more urbanized, more economically integrated. Egypt fed the empire with grain. Syria thrived in trade. Asia Minor was densely populated and productive. The West, by contrast, was more rural and increasingly unstable. When Constantine founded Constantinople in 330 AD, he did more than relocate power. He anchored Rome to the east. The new capital stood at a strategic crossroads between Europe and Asia, between Black Sea and Mediterranean, between trade routes and military frontiers. Its position allowed it to control commerce and defend against invasion. It was protected by sea on 3 sides. And when the Theodosian walls were completed in the 5th century, Constantinople became nearly impregnable. The West would fragment, but the East was fortified, economically, militarily, geographically. In 476, Odoacer deposed the last Western emperor. The imperial insignia were sent to Constantinople. Symbolically, the Roman Empire was unified under one ruler again in the east. While Italy descended into instability, the Eastern administration remained intact. Taxation systems functioned. The bureaucracy operated efficiently. Trade networks persisted. The Eastern army remained disciplined and professional. The so-called fall of Rome was not the collapse of a civilization. It was the collapse of its western half. The East survived because it had resources. It had cities. It had administrative continuity. It had stability. But survival alone was not enough. There were those who dreamed of restoration. In 527 AD, Justinian became emperor. He was ambitious. He believed Rome could be whole again. Under his command, generals like Belisarius reconquered North Africa from the Vandals. They reclaimed Italy from the Ostrogoths. Parts of Spain returned to imperial control. For a brief moment, the Mediterranean resembled a Roman lake once more. But Justinian's legacy was not only military. He ordered the construction of Hagia Sophia, a vast dome suspended over light and space. It became a symbol of imperial and divine authority. He codified Roman law into the Corpus Juris Civilis. This legal system would influence European law for centuries. But Justinian's ambition came at immense cost. War drained the treasury, the reconquests devastated Italy, and then plague struck. The plague of Justinian swept through the empire in the mid-6th century. Population declined dramatically. The empire survived, but weakened. The dream of full Roman restoration faded. What followed was not expansion. It was transformation. The 7th century brought existential threats. The Sasanian Persians invaded deeply, capturing Syria, Egypt, and even Jerusalem. The empire was nearly broken, but Emperor Heraclius reformed the army and struck back. He marched into Persian territory. By 628, the Persian Empire collapsed into civil war. Yet even in victory, Byzantium was exhausted. And then, from Arabia, a new force emerged. Arab armies, unified under Islam, surged outward. Within decades, Byzantium lost Syria, Egypt, North Africa. These were not minor provinces. They were the empire's economic heartlands. The empire shrank dramatically, but it did not collapse. Instead, it adapted. The theme system was introduced. Military districts replaced older administrative divisions. Land was granted to soldiers in exchange for service. The empire became more compact, more defensive, more Greek in language and identity. Latin faded from official use. Greek became dominant. The Roman Empire was becoming Byzantine. Not less Roman, but differently Roman. In 717 AD, Arab forces laid siege to Constantinople. If the city fell, the path into southeastern Europe would open. But Constantinople held. The Theodosian walls proved their strength. Greek fire, a mysterious incendiary weapon, burned enemy ships. The siege failed. This moment altered history. Had Constantinople fallen, the political map of Europe might have changed dramatically. The empire endured, smaller, harder, more resilient. From the 9th to 11th centuries, Byzantium entered a period of revival. Under the Macedonian dynasty, culture flourished. Art returned to classical inspiration. Mosaics shimmered with renewed brilliance. Scholars preserved ancient texts. Missionaries spread Orthodox Christianity into Eastern Europe. The conversion of the Slavs and Kievan Rus connected Byzantium to emerging powers. Under Basil II, the empire expanded into the Balkans. Military strength returned. The treasury filled. This was not ancient Rome reborn. It was a medieval Roman state, confident, refined, sophisticated. But stability never lasted forever. In 1095, Western Europe launched the First Crusade. Initially, Byzantium saw opportunity. Western knights could help reclaim lost territories. But distrust grew. Cultural differences widened. Then, in 1204, the unthinkable occurred. The Fourth Crusade diverted to Constantinople. Crusaders sacked the city. Churches looted. Treasures stolen. The capital of Eastern Christianity was devastated by fellow Christians. The empire fragmented. Latin rulers briefly occupied the city. Though Byzantium would eventually reclaim Constantinople, it was never the same. Its resources depleted, its authority weakened, the wound of 1200 for never fully healed. By the 14th century, a new power rose in Anatolia, the Ottomans. Gradually, Byzantine territory shrank to little more than Constantinople and surrounding lands. The once vast empire was reduced to a city-state, yet even in decline, its culture endured. Its scholars transmitted classical knowledge westward. Greek learning helped ignite the Renaissance in Italy. In 1453, Sultan Mehmed II laid siege to Constantinople. Cannons battered the ancient walls. After weeks of resistance, the city fell. The last Roman emperor, Constantine XI, died defending the city. With his death, the Roman Empire, founded in 27 BC, finally ended. Not in 476, but in 1453. The Byzantine Empire preserved Roman law. It transmitted Greek philosophy. It shaped Eastern Orthodoxy. It influenced Russia and the Balkans. It served as a bridge between antiquity and the medieval world. Without Byzantium, much of classical knowledge might have vanished. It was not merely a survival story. It was a transmission story, an empire that endured long, enough to pass civilization forward. Rome did not vanish in a single catastrophe. It evolved. It changed language. It changed faith. It changed borders, but it remained Roman. For 1,000 years after the fall of the West, emperors ruled from Constantinople as heirs to Augustus. The Byzantine Empire was not a shadow of Rome. It was Rome transformed. And though its walls fell in 1453, its legacy still stands in law, in faith, in culture, in memory. Rome refused to die.